All right, guys. So I've been practicing fasting for a long time. There's a lot of people out there trying to jump into the fasting game that are charlatans that don't actually practice it. And it's usually because of a lack of expertise. There's a lot of nonsense out there when it comes to fasting. And if you're new here, you got to check out my book, The Panda Diet. Great tutorial on long form fasting. Simple. I made it simple to understand. With fasting, it still all comes down to the mind, both habit formation, inner dialogue, things of that nature. So I'm going to go over basically the four biggest mistakes that people make in fasting. Hopefully this can save you some time and answer some questions. If you stay to the end of this video, I'm going to tell you one mindset reframe that'll completely transform your relationship with losing body fat and the discomfort that's often associated with that. So I'll tell you that at the end. And the first mistake that most people make, trying to stay connected to the old world of nutrition, where everything is about calories in, calories out, which is complete nonsense, BS. It's far down the list, guys. Far down the list. And if you've dieted, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Metabolic rate adjusts, hormones get all wacky. They don't favor fat loss. Stops working. Metabolic rate is down. Go back to eating normal amount of food or more because your hunger hormones are up. You start gaining weight and you surpass where you even started. This is a vicious cycle. And that is all based in something called attention resolution system, like regular, typical North American diets. I'm sick. I need to lose weight. I'm hungry. I got to eat. And you repeat this cycle, trying to use willpower. It doesn't work. Break the chains and the bondage to the old way of eating, to dieting. That's why I created this, or kind of molded it to fit my lifestyle. Obviously, I didn't create fasting, but I'm bringing some popularity to it my own way. That's helping a lot of people. And I know what it's done for my life. So break the bondage. Don't count your calories. Don't do keto. Don't do carnivore. Don't cut out your carbs. None of that. You don't need to do that. Stop thinking about sugar as bad. You're already controlling the number one factor, which is insulin. So break the bondage. This is to liberate you from dieting. And yes, it might be restricted as far as the time you're allowing to eat over the course of a day and a week, but there's no limits really on that meal. When you eat in the structure that I teach, even then you have a lot of leeway. Right? The nutrition is a separate piece. Fasting, get the fasting periods down first. So break the bondage to the old way of dieting. That is a huge mistake, I see. Another big mistake. You're not fasting long enough. So for 5 years, from 2014 to 2019, I did your typical intermittent fasting, 16 to 18 hour fast. And sometimes I'd go 20, sometimes I'd go 24, which I thought was like extreme at that time. And I knew it was better than the old way of dieting. It was just easier to manage hunger. It was easier to stay in better shape, but there was still a limit on it. It was like a cap. I still had to count my calories in and manage that, right? Because that was the primary factor, the frequency with which I was eating. We're going to shift that. You know, you shift insulin, become more insulin sensitive, you start shifting that, where over time, it's not going to happen in a week. You'll drop some quick weight in a week. And that's another thing we'll talk about is water weight. That'll be a little bonus. A lot of people focus on the wrong questions when it comes to their fasting. You're not going long enough. If you're doing a 16-hour fast, 14, 18, it's not long enough to move the needle. It's better than eating multiple times a day. However, it's not going to get you what you want. And a lot of people have done that. So I tried that. That didn't work. This is a completely different animal. Completely different. So you're not going long enough to get the results you want. Why do you need to be eating 2 or 3 times a day? Unless you're some type of extreme athlete that's got unusual requirements. Why do you need to be eating that many times a day? Ask yourself that. The body fat you have is a food source. Reframe that. Give your body a reason to tap into that fat. But if you're eating, every time you eat, insulin's released, signals the body, store, don't burn any fat. If insulin's elevated, you cannot lose body fat. So give yourself more time where insulin is down. Another big mistake, especially when you get into the longer form fasting, you're not doing enough electrolytes or salt. Salt's the main one. We also got potassium, magnesium, great things to supplement with. Got that in the book, but not enough salt. So most people already are not taking in enough salt. And then if they go a few days without eating, the little sodium they're getting in, which is coming from their food, they're not getting. Now, if sodium's low, energy is going to be low. Metabolic rate's going to be thwarted. Hunger hormones are going to be more difficult. A lot of times, all you have to do is add some salt, some Celtic sea salt, some Baja gold salt to your water. And I also have people add potassium and baking soda, but start with the salt. A lot of times you're not getting enough salt. When you have that, your energy, once you adjust to this, is going to be supreme. way more than when you're feeding yourself all the time. Trust me, I hear that all the time. I've experienced it. This is the case, but not enough salt. Now, the biggest mistake, and remember, at the end, after this final big mistake, I'm going to tell you one mindset shift, reframe that you can use right away. It's a complete game changer. It's worth 5 figures if you put it to practice. Stay tuned. The biggest mistake people make when they start their fasting journey, they don't set their mind right. They don't set their mind to it. Now, there's 2 aspects to this. You have the mind map component, clearing up threats, right? We got to address certain issues if you can't form habits because there's other threats deeper in your brain that are coming to the surface. We got to address those. What I'm specifically talking about here is part of the reason I chose the panda, the symbology. It's black or white. That's very in sync with the word decision, which I talk about a lot. Decision is based on a Latin word that means to sever, to cut yourself off, to sear. There's no other possibility. And with the knowledge I've gained through coaching and learning mind mapping over the past 15 years, been coaching people almost 27 years, it's really, okay, how does the brain work? How does it work? How do we form habits? So most people try to base their diet on willpower. That's why a lot of people will say, I'm going to start my diet Monday. Monday night comes, they're eating cookies. What happened? They had all the best intentions. They're relying on willpower. Willpower is finite, the part of your brain that's located in. By the end of the day, it's burned up. So if you're relying on that, you'll never form a habit around anything that's purely willpower based. That is very true. You're not going to form a habit around anything you don't find pleasurable too. I find this way of eating a complete joy. Every meal I eat is the best meal of all time. That's how I view it. Brought me closer to God. It's given me this feast to look forward to when it's time to eat. Just a blessing. It's a great experience. Now, as far as setting your mind to a decision, black or white, when you leave the gray area on the table, might have gone out on me. When you leave the gray area on the table, you're burning tremendous amount of headspace and mental energy because you're leaving that gray area represents, let me see how I feel if I'm going to keep going. When you make it black or white, you eliminate the willpower. You have said, I'm fasting. That's it. There's no other possibility. When you do that, you open up all this energy because you're not so focused on trying to use willpower. So when people ask me, what do I need to do to set your mind to, I'm going to do this. There's a reason I start a lot of my clients out with a 48-hour fast. Knock out any fear, boom, do it. Let's reframe, and then we move forward. So setting your mind right, and that's with anything in life, right? But that's a huge mistake. People want to overstep that. This is about an internal transformation that leads to the external transformation of your body. Most people take the outside-in approach. Let me get to a certain weight, look a certain way. But they didn't make the internal shift. The fasting greatly helps you do that. Believe me, mind, body, spirit. It's not a diet. And the nutrition is a separate piece. Now, for the reframe, I told you I was going to tell you about. This is a game changer. And I figured this out when I was bodybuilding. So I do these crazy starvation diets and be miserable for months on end. So I had to learn how to cope with chronic hunger, which you don't get with the fasting that I teach. When you feel hunger, again, you got to find a positive in it. Tell yourself, this is what fat loss feels like. This is what fat loss feels like. It's momentary. Then it goes away. Start viewing your hunger as an emotion. It becomes much easier to deal with. It comes and goes. It's largely dictated by your emotion or how much you slept, amount of stress. That is worth gold. This is what fat loss feels like when you feel hunger. Now it becomes a positive. You're trying to lose body fat. Put it to use. Let me know what you think. These were the biggest mistakes I see made in your fasting journey. Let me know any questions below. Don't forget to like it, subscribe, leave a comment or a question. Thanks for the support, guys. Later.